Engarde, viewer! Yes, the timeless act of crossing swords has been captured on film for over 100 years. A contest both steeped in nobility and outright barbarity, a good sword fight can reveal a lot about those involved, as well as the story being told.
Plus, it's hella cool when they go clink, clink.
From an honorable duel in the 14th century to a pirate fight atop a rolling wheel, these cinematic clashes have riveted audiences. Join me as I explore the history and making of these epic battles.
And as I fling around this replica of a 16th century Spanish broadsword.
Before I start, I should probably pre-apologize to my bookshelves.
And the light fixture.
I'm Chris Goodmakers with ScreenRant, and here's how they made some of the most iconic sword fights. Ridley Scott's The Last Duel may not have impressed millennials, but it's a riveting and historical look at the last official duel fought in France during the winter of 1386. Hey, the 80s are usually a crazy time for any century. At least they only had to deal with one kind of wham. Telling the true story of the duel between former friends Jacques Legris and Jean de Carouge, the film leads up to the epic fight in its last minutes. To create the titular Last Duel, director Ridley Scott enlisted the aid of stunt coordinator Rob Inch. Inch has a long history of choreographing these kinds of knockdown, drag-out battles. Working early in his career as a stuntman in films like The Phantom Menace and The Mummy Returns, he moved on to being a stunt coordinator with modern fights in The Last Jedi and Outlaw King. On the day of shooting, Scott used around a half-dozen cameras simultaneously rolling so he could get every angle of the duel. Rob Inch, whose name I will never get tired of saying, has worked with Scott many times. And for The Last Duel, Inch crafted exhaustive pre-visualizations to figure out every hit and how it would be shot. The Last Duel is out now, and despite its directors grumbling about the younger generation, it's a film well worth the work Scott and Inch put into it. Besides, we should probably keep Ridley Scott making historical epics and away from anything featuring a xenomorph.
Watch me. I'll do the fingering.
Tarantino is back, and as I explained in my last video, he loves to emulate the films of the past and mix them into his modern works. A prime example is Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, though we will focus on the first installment. In particular, the climactic sword fight between the bride and the deadly O-Ren Ishii, only lasting 4 minutes and 9 seconds. The quick and skillful fight sees the two deadly sword masters crossing traditional Japanese blades. Each blow was choreographed by Tetsuro Shimaguchi. Tetsuro is not actually a traditional Hollywood stunt coordinator. In fact, the Kill Bill movies are his only real credit. What he is, however, is a martial arts expert that has developed his own exclusive sword fighting style named Kengido. He came to Tarantino's attention when an acquaintance of the director noticed his skill and recommended him for the upcoming martial arts picture. Only 32 at the time, the young swordsman worked closely with the stars to choreograph every blow. You can even see Tetsuro as the first Crazy 88 to fall victim to the bride's deadly Hattori Hanzo blade. Since Kill Bill's success, Tetsuro has traveled the world expanding his new style and demonstrating it for spectators and students. You can even train with the master himself at his Kengido school in Japan.
That sounds way cooler than the cheese-making course I took at the Learning Annex. Oh god.
The Matrix Reloaded may not have been the sequel we wanted to the 1999 mega hit, but it certainly had the fight scenes we needed. Arguably the best in the over 2 hours of martial arts mayhem is the Chateau Showdown. When series hero Neo is confronted by a group of stuntmen, henchmen, the ensuing fight makes great use of both the large wraparound staircase and the ridiculous amount of bladed weaponry hanging around. Working with Hong Kong action master Yuen Wu-ping, the Wachowski sisters crafted a sequence involving expert wire work and split-second timing. Yuen has an amazing career and has trained martial arts legends like Ip Man himself, Donnie Yen. Yuen also admired the Wachowski style and found it very refreshing and helpful. The Wachowskis would first relay very clearly to me their ideas and instructions for each scene, right down to the nitty-gritty like the number of action scenes, how they wanted the fights to be like, and for how long. They are exceedingly great action directors. I have encountered many Hollywood directors. When they shoot action scenes, they employ multiple cameras at the same time. However, the Wachowskis are like the Hong Kong directors, only using one camera. It was this admiration for the Wachowski sisters and their style that made Yuen Woo-ping even return for The Matrix Reloaded, as he was not a huge fan of the Hollywood system and the producers on the first movie. Understandable, as Yuen is a director himself, having personally launched Jackie Chan into stardom with 1974's Drunken Master. I guess producers can be just as annoying in any country. Between The Last Duel, The Duelists, Kingdom of Heaven, and Robin Hood, it's safe to say Sir Ridley Scott knows his way around a sword. Was there a sword fight in a good year? I never saw it, but I can't imagine Russell Crowe drinking too much French wine and swinging one around. I know for sure he uses a sword in the Oscar-winning Gladiator, however, so let's take a look at that one. There are plenty to choose from in the Roman epic, but the standout is once again the climactic duel between Crowe's Maximus and Joaquin Phoenix's Evil Emperor. It's a brutal sword fight that devolves into Crowe just wailing on Phoenix's face, but no doubt it made audiences cheer. Arranged by Nicholas Powell, a veteran of films like Braveheart and The Mummy, Powell worked with Ridley Scott to bring the gladiatorial combat to life. While the idea of a Roman emperor fighting one-on-one with a trained gladiator isn't exactly historically accurate, Powell did want to strive to adhere to history with the weaponry and the style of combat. While there is criminally no Academy Award for stunt work, Gladiator did take home 5 out of the 12 Oscars it was nominated for. It's undeniable the impact that the fights had on the film's positive reception. A pirate is only as good as his ship and his sword. Swaggering pirate Jack Sparrow often finds himself without either. We were first introduced to the boozy buccaneer in the now classic Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. You know how I feel about overly long film titles, viewer. The first big action sequence in the 2003 film is a sword fight between Sparrow and William Turner, played by Orlando Bloom. It's an exciting fight that sees the two matching wits inside a simmering hot forge. When the sequel, Dead Man's Chest, arrived in theaters in 2006, audiences were expecting a sword fight to top the last one. Boy, did they get it. When Jack, Will, and the now disgraced James Norrington clash on a beach, their fight brings them to a crumbling church and its rickety water wheel. Turner and Norrington continue to cross swords as the wheel dislodges and tumbles through the island jungle. Stuntman Zach Hudson described filming the sequence as a baptism by fire, as the sequence was conceived and planned late in production, leaving the stuntman little time to prepare. The wheel fight, I had not rehearsed it or had time on it. I literally had about a week to prep for it. The wheel itself is real, and was dragged behind a flatbed truck while the stunt performers clashed on top and inside the massive spinning prop. Stunning work from both the stunt team and stunt coordinator George Marshall Rouge. Rouge worked on the previous film as well, teaming with sword fighting icon Bob Anderson to bring the forge fight to life. Who's Bob Anderson? Well, I'm glad you want to know, you imaginary viewer that asked me leading questions that let me segue into another topic. Widely cited as the single greatest cinematic sword fight, The Princess Bride's famous duel between the Dread Pirate and the Spanish Swordmaster has been studied by film students for decades. It's a perfect example of how every movement, every line, reveals details about the characters and the world they inhabit. It's also super funny and a rare fight where we root for both combatants. The main person to thank for this scene is legendary fight choreographer Bob Anderson. Having worked from 1953 up to his passing in 2012, Bob Anderson has been behind some of the most iconic fights in film history. This man has crafted sword fights in films like Highlander, The Mask of Zorro, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. By the way, his official title on all of those movies was Sword Master. Hot. Want me to make this nice old British man even cooler? Well, watch out, because he also played Darth Vader both times he fought Luke. You can find out more on my Bob Anderson Tumblr. Anderson and his longtime training partner Peter Diamond worked with Cary Elwes and Mandy Patinkin for months before production. It was hard on the two actors because while Anderson and Diamond were ambidextrous, Elwes and Patinkin were not. Unfortunately for Elwes, his character wasn't wearing a Darth Vader helmet they could sneak Anderson into. Remember that Scottish historical epic about a clan leader who is pushed to the brink by English occupation of his homeland? You know, the one where the lead is played by a famously non-Scottish actor, and the bad guy is a sneering British stereotype? That's right, it's Rob Roy. I'm talking about Rob Roy. Do you remember Rob Roy? Yes, while it may have been overshadowed by Mel Gibson's overly long tale, Rob Roy is just as deserving of recognition. The Scottish epic is the tale of Rob Roy McGregor and his fight against the English lords of his time. The movie's climax is often cited as the peak of sword fighting on film. Rob Roy ends in a duel between Liam Neeson's Scottish outlaw and the vile Archibald Cunningham, played by Tim Roth. The fight is unique both in its brutal realism and tension. There are no daring quips, no jumping and wire work, just two very angry men swinging swords at each other through exhaustion and fear. And it was all choreographed by the legendary William Hobbs. Hobbs, not to be confused with this Hobbs, was a titan of stunt work and fight arrangement. Having worked in film since 1964, the stuntman previously worked on the Ridley Scott debut, The Duelists, and wanted to bring a similar style to Rob Roy's climactic fight. Most important for him was the spaces between the action. We wanted to get across the awful feeling that you believe you'll be dead on the floor. In the end, the realism is the fear.
I'd say mission accomplished, because I'd certainly be afraid if someone was swinging a sword around me. Oh, sorry, Booker. Step, thrust, riposte. Sorry, I was just practicing. It's always good to learn a new skill, and you never know when sword fighting is going to come back into fashion. TikTok trends are unpredictable.
That's how they made some of the greatest sword fights in cinematic history. Sometimes there's nothing finer than a good sword fight. The challenge, the tension, the clink clink. It's all essential to crafting a memorable clash.
Thanks for watching, and remember, keep your guard up. Sweetheart, I broke the lamp again.